Welcome to Moments with Marianne. This is your host, Marianne Pastana, and we're here today with special guest Emma Gray, who's here to share with us her new novel, Pictures of You. So what would you do if you could have a second chance with that one special person? Well, today we're going to dive into just that. So Emma Gray is the author of 4 young adult novels and the global breakout bestseller, The Last Love Note. So welcome to the show, Emma Gray.
Thanks, Marianne. It's lovely to be here.
My goodness, what an honor it is to have you here and talk about this book. I have to tell you, once I picked this book up, I could not put it down. It is such a great read, it's so well written. What even inspired you to write this?
Oh, thank you. That's lovely to hear, Marianne. It felt a bit like that when I was writing it, actually. It was one of these stories that just really gripped me once I started, and I feel like it all just tumbled out in a rush onto the page and then was followed by about 15 drafts of editing. But it's a story that I think has probably been brewing all of my adult life. And even before then, I remember having conversations as a teenager beside the school lockers, talking about possessive first boyfriends and jealous boyfriends long before we had the language that we use now to describe coercive control. And then I remember being in my 20s and 30s before we had mobile phones, and I'd be in the office and you'd pick up the phone on the desk of a colleague and it would be her husband calling for the third or fourth time in the hour, wanting to know where she was and who she was with. And even now, in the process of talking with people about this novel, almost every interview that I've done so far, we've sort of stopped the interview at the end, we've wrapped up the recording, and then the interviewers are saying, just off the record, I am Evie in this book, or I have been Evie, or my daughter is Evie, or my friend, or, I grew up in a household where my parents were like this. And I think it's just one of these topics that we need to talk more about. My 26-year-old daughter is doing a PhD at the Australian National University. You can probably tell I'm Australian by just listening to me, but she's doing a criminology PhD and her topic is gendered violence against women. And I think probably hanging around with my daughter has really influenced me as well to put pen to paper and to write something like this that I think will hopefully generate a really helpful conversation with a lot of people.
Well, this is definitely a conversation that needs to be had. And I was so impressed in how you're able to interweave this very difficult topic on domestic abuse into a novel so people can really take a hard look at their own relationships that are in turmoil and maybe reassess those.
That's right. That's right. And it was really important to me that I was able to position that toxic relationship in the book beside a really beautiful romantic one. I'm such a romantic at heart. I've been a romantic ever since I was introduced to Anne of Green Gables back in the 1980s. And it's sort of inevitable that in every book I write, there tends to be a hopeful love story. And there certainly is one of those in this as well. And I think that almost helps to draw the comparison between how things should be and how they often are in different relationships.
So, we've talked a little bit about the book, Pictures of You. Is there anything else you'd like to share about the story? We don't want to give any spoilers away.
For sure. So the book opens with a woman who has woken up after the car accident that has killed her husband. And she has no idea and no memory of the 13 years of their relationship since they first met in high school. And so she has this traumatic amnesia that almost helps me as the author to go back in time and explore exactly what happened in her life. Because when she looks around her, in the present day, she doesn't like what she's seeing. She doesn't recognize the people in her life, and key people in her life are missing. So this book really goes back into time where she reunites with one of her dearest high school friends, and can't remember him either at the time. And he helps her to piece together over time what has happened in her life. There's sort of elements of mystery, of forensic linguistics, and certainly that sense of first love. I think most people that you talk to can remember in great detail what it was like to fall in love for the first time. And that's something that I've tried to capture in this book as well.
Was it difficult writing a story that begins with a character that is dealing with memory loss?
It certainly adds a challenge to the writing process, and so does the fact that I don't plot my novels. So I was equally in the dark along with her and trying to work out what had happened. The same thing is said of my previous novel, The Last Love Note, which I wrote, which was published about a year ago, and that story was a book that I wrote after the death of my husband in 2016. And again, a story with two love stories in it, and one of them her falling in love again after loss. And again, I didn't plot that one; it just all tumbled out onto the page. And I think when you can let go of that need to know all the answers when you're writing, sometimes it leads you to places that are really surprising.
How did you approach writing this book where it goes into some real, domestic abuse and some really dark areas that way, but also being able to kind of strike this balance between that and considering the relevance for today?
Mm. I did a lot of research. I wrote this with a lot of advice from a woman called Catherine Burney, who is the executive director of the National Women's Safety Alliance in Australia. She has read this book, I think, more times than I have. She's been incredible. She's been so supportive. And I wanted to be very responsible in how I wrote about this topic. I think it's one that can be quite easy to romanticize, and I think that's dangerous. I think that happens in books because part of coercive control is this incredible love bombing at the start of a relationship where you just feel so adored, and where there's a level of obsession that can feel incredibly romantic. And I think that's a dangerous and difficult thing to write about without romanticizing it. And I wanted to make sure that I was honoring the victim survivors who will read this book and see themselves in the story. I've also been the best friend on numerous occasions in my life with very close friends who have been in these situations. And I think I partly wrote this, I guess, as a mother of two young adult women and a young son who's a teenager. I wanted to show him what a strong male is in a relationship, and also paint the picture of these red flags that we need to look out for as women. But I also wrote it for the people who may see themselves in the story, but those who are friends with or trying to help someone who's in this. I think one of the traps that it's very easy to fall into is to ask yourself, well, she's an intelligent woman, why doesn't she just leave? And we forget that the moment that a woman chooses and makes that decision to leave an abusive relationship is the moment that she is most at risk. So I think there's an awful lot of responsibility covering a topic like this, and I just hope that I've done that justice.
Oh, you have. People are calling your book addictive. So, I mean, you definitely have done it justice because you do strike that balance with
Mm.
telling this story. And oh my goodness, I mean, as a best-selling author of multiple novels, how has your writing process evolved over the years, especially when we look at pictures of you?
I think the key difference between writing The Last Love Note and writing Pictures of You was that I wrote The Last Love Note without a publishing contract. So I was able to take my time over several years, and it wasn't until I felt super confident with what I'd produced that I was able to submit that to my agent, who then started shopping it around publishers. This time around, there was a strict deadline. I had a lot of expectation. I felt a lot of pressure. Um, just not to disappoint readers who had loved the previous book and were saying, I can't wait for your next book. And it's hard when you're sitting there, in a first draft that's often a messy first draft, and comparing that to the polished product that's just been through numerous rounds of editing that's out on the shelves. So I think I've had to change my mindset and get a quick draft written and sent to my publishers, and so my editors can give me early feedback so that we can all meet the deadlines that we have. And yeah, I guess on one level it sort of becomes more of a job mindset, in that this is now my full-time work, and I don't have the luxury that I used to have of dreaming that one day this might happen.
Well, you're with some of the best publishers. Zibby Books is one of my favorite publishers. I love them. They've got some
Yeah.
great books that come from there. I mean, and I've got to tell you, okay, so the audiobook excerpt on your website, oh my goodness, that is a great one. In fact, I can't remember if I saw it on your website or Zibby's, but either way, it is awesome. I was listening to that and I was like, I've got to get that audiobook now too. So,
Yeah. Oh gosh, yes. Well, the narrator from the last Love Note is a professional actor, and I think the same can be said for the narrators for Pictures of You. And I think they just bring this extra quality from their acting background into the portrayal of these characters. People sometimes say, why don't you narrate your own books?" I just think this is not my area. I need to leave that to the experts.
yeah, that's a whole nother job. So-
Yes.
Oh, Emma, I just love your book, Pictures of You. Where can our listeners go and connect with you and be part of your community and learn more, not just about this book, but all your other books?
Yes, zibbymedia.com is the publisher's website, and mine is emmagray with an ey.com.au. And then I'm on Instagram and Facebook at Emma Gray Author, and I would love to interact with readers. One of my favourite parts of being a writer.
Well, Emma, thank you so much for taking the time to be on the show with us here today.
Oh, thank you very much. I appreciate it.
Well, thank you, Emma. It's been such an honor to spend this time with you and to talk about your new novel, Pictures of You. Pictures of You is available at Amazon, Barnes & Noble, and all indie retailers, and you can purchase this book directly from the publisher, Zibby Books, at zibbybooks.com. Well, we're at the end of our time today. I'd like to thank everyone for tuning in. You've been listening to Moments with Mary Ann, where we make every moment count.
In a single moment, your life can change. Moments with Mary Ann is a transformative hour that covers an endless array of topics with the best of the best. Her guests are leaders in their fields, ranging from inspirational authors, top industry leaders, and business and spiritual entrepreneurs. Each guest is gifted and a true visionary, a recognized leader in her own work, and while teaching others to develop, refocus, and grow, Mary Ann will bring the best guest and sometimes a special surprise. Don't miss this. You never know just which moment will change your life forever. Make sure to tune in and visit momentswithmaryann.com for more information.